It would seem that two-headed animals can be found only in myths, fairy tales, and fantasy movies. But Mother Nature knows how to surprise us. Every now and then it gives us two-headed cats and tortoises, snakes which heads argue with each other, large alligators with two heads, and not only. It's definitely worth seeing. Today I'll show you the rarest two-headed animals. Let's go. How about we start with something as familiar to us as possible? Cats, for example. Among these furry creatures, two-headed, or rather two-faced cats are born sometimes. They're called Janus cats in honor of the two-faced god from Roman mythology. The most famous Janus cat is Frank and Louie, who was born in Massachusetts in 1999. Not only was this cat one of the rarest two-headed creatures in history, but it was also the most unique among them. You'll soon see why. As for the cat himself, technically the creature was one cat, even though there were two cats with two muzzles growing into its body. The animal had one brain, and both of its faces reacted to what was happening around synchronously. What was unique about the animal, apart from him being two-headed, is how long he lived. Typically, two-faced cats, like other animals with two heads, die at an early age, many not even lasting a few days. But Frank and Louie lived a full cat life, dying at the age of 15. This became an unrivaled Guinness Book record. Let's see if he can be beaten by the next cat in this episode, a furball named Duo. It's a fitting name, isn't it? This is another two-headed cat who is now 4 years old. Duo is a little different from Frank and Louie in terms of body features. His defect is called diprosopis. This is when parts of the face are completely duplicated on the head. Duo has two faces and both are fully functioning. Both cats meow and eat separately, and both noses can breathe. Everything's great, but there's a disadvantage in such a feature. Duo can't sort things out with himself. The muzzles are arguing over food or direction of movement, and the cat himself is retarded and poorly developed, unlike ordinary cats. But with such a rare feature, there's nothing to worry about. Do you agree? Tortoise. Tortoises are well-known centenarians, but when it comes to two-headed animals, age is a different story. Even a few months or weeks of life for such creatures is not a bad time. But Janus the tortoise is not going to live such a short life. The two-headed reptile turned 25 years old last September. Not only is he currently the rarest tortoise with two heads, but it's also the oldest tortoise in the world with such an unusual feature. Unlike the cats I showed you, the tortoise is exactly two-headed, with each of his heads functioning separately. Each head has its own brain. Interestingly, this even affects his character. Different animals with different views of the world literally coexist in the same body. For example, the right head has a more dominant character, but the left head is phlegmatic, which is not used to being in the role of a leader. In addition, as in the case of Duo the cat, Janus conflicts with himself. The two heads do not always agree on the direction of movement and try to move in different directions. In addition, Janus physically cannot hide his heads in the shell, as it's done by common tortoises. There's simply no room for two heads. But he has nothing to worry about. The tortoise is not wild and lives under supervision in the Geneva Museum. Snake. It was a similar situation with another reptile. This very rare and unusual snake. It lived in an animal rescue center where it was carefully cared for. This bore fruit, and the two-headed snake was able to live a long life for its peculiarity, as much as 17 years. With this, it defied all the predictions of vets who had predicted its death at an early age. This western rat snake is incredibly unique. Even snake experts, who have seen all the different slithering creatures on the planet, assure. The case of the two-headed reptile is 1 in 100 million. In general, in western rat snakes, one such two-headed individual is born in 100,000 common ones, but only a few manage to live a long life. Such a snake is born when one fertilized egg begins to divide into twins, but they're not completely separated. It's also interesting how this individual was fed. Because its heads were in conflict with each other and competing for food, the staff at the Animal Rescue Center had to do a trick. They covered one head with a cup and fed the other head, then switched. As you can imagine, in the wild, such a two-headed snake wouldn't last long. The heads would simply argue with each other and wouldn't be able to eat properly. Sharks. The case of sharks is particularly interesting. The thing is that in this case, I cannot single out any one individual, all because there are quite a few two-headed sharks, and in the last few years, there are more and more such sharks. Fishermen every now and then catch such mutants and are frightened. Even though two-headed sharks are always small and harmless, the sight is still not soothing. The mutants are often found near the US and in India. Fishermen have also found two-headed sharks in adult sharks when they cut up the fish for sale. But what's wrong with the world? Why are there more and more two-headed sharks? Scientists do not have an exact answer to these questions, but there are several hypotheses. According to the first, fishing has reduced the shark population so much that genetic diversity has decreased, and random mutation has become more often copied. Another hypothesis says that pollution of the world ocean is to blame for everything. There is another hypothesis that says that there have always been a lot of two-headed sharks. It's just that in the last 10 to 15 years, everyone's had phones with cameras, and now fishermen can take pictures of unusual two-headed sharks and post the footage on the internet. Before that, all their stories were perceived as nonsense and tales. No one believed that they really stumbled upon such unusual creatures. Porpoise. The situation is not so rosy with these sea creatures. I mean, the population. If there are a lot of two-headed sharks, then there are no more than 10 porpoises with two heads in the whole world. And unlike sharks, they're caught extremely rarely. The Dutch fishermen were lucky enough to get such a rare and unique creature out of the water, and even then it was already dead. The fishermen quickly took some pictures of the two-headed porpoise, and the body was lowered into the sea, considering that no one would be interested in the dead individual. It's a pity that they didn't think about scientists for whom such individuals are worth their weight in gold. But even the pictures were enough for them to draw conclusions. In their opinion, the porpoise had dicephaly paraplegia, a condition that's a fusion of conjoined twins, where two bodies merge into one, but the heads develop separately. Scientists believe that the porpoise caught by the fishermen died almost immediately after birth. I think there's nothing particularly scary, let alone dangerous, about a two-headed porpoise or a two-headed shark. But what about a large two-headed predator, like an alligator? A man named Justin stumbled upon just such a one in 2014 in Florida. He was walking his dog by a river when he suddenly saw a 6.5-foot-long alligator with two heads. Justin took a couple of pictures and got out of there as soon as possible. After all, two toothy jaws are clearly more dangerous than just one. Researchers studied the pictures and said that the alligator is most likely a victim of a mutation of identical twin fetuses. They said that such a phenomenon is quite common among reptiles. However, there were also those who thought that the pictures were fake. What do you think? Can such alligators exist in nature? Share your thoughts in the comments. Calf. And such a miracle has recently appeared in India. In early July, a two-headed calf was born in the state of Uttar Pradesh. It was immediately called God's miracle, and the locals were delighted, not only because of the unusual nature of the animal, but also because in India the birth of such creatures is considered a good sign. Despite the anomaly, the animal is healthy and has a good appetite, which cannot but please the farmer. But it's possible that the joy will not last long because usually calves with this feature live for a few months at most. Let's see if this is the case. I suggest we end this with two-headed creatures and take a look at animals that have only one head, as they should, but they have extra limbs, and it looks no less unusual. Since we already had a calf, why not take a look at a cow? Besides, this cow is very unusual. It has 6 legs and 2 tails. Such creatures are born very rarely. The unique individual lived in Thailand. Its extra limbs grew out of its shoulder and didn't touch the ground. It may seem that they made the cow's life more difficult, but according to the farmer, it wasn't the case. The cow felt good, and an extra pair of legs didn't cause its inconvenience. Probably all because it had extra limbs and a tail from birth, so it got used to living with them. However, it didn't live long, only a couple of years. Forest. Forest has only one extra limb. This lamb is 5-legged. The extra leg grows near the left forelimb and almost touches the ground, especially when Forrest runs. By the way, he was named after a famous but fictional runner, Forrest Gump. The farmers thought that the extra limb was supposed to get the lamb to love running, and so it turned out. The fifth leg doesn't prevent Forrest from running, he loves it, and most importantly, the animal is completely healthy, which cannot but please. And the final animal of our episode is a very special one. It's a frog, or rather, several frogs. As you can see, they also have extra limbs, but the trick is that they're not born with them. But how? Have frogs learned to grow limbs whenever they want? Not exactly. The whole reason is a parasitic worm of the Rarest genus. It infects tadpoles of American green tree frogs or Pacific tree frogs and creates an excess of retinoic acid, a form of vitamin A, in their bodies. This is what causes abnormal limb growth. The parasite has thought of everything in detail. Frogs for it are just an intermediate host, and the main target is birds that feed on these amphibians. It's on them that Rarest parasitizes most actively. Due to the fact that the infected frog doesn't understand how to cope with the new extra legs, it slows down, begins to swim and jump with difficulty, and eventually becomes an easy target for birds. The feathered creature easily eats the prey. The worm enters the bird's body and begins to multiply there. Two-headed animals are certainly impressive. But what if I told you there's scary creatures like this in the world? Keep watching, and you'll see some mystical animals caught on camera. Unicorn. Unicorns are magical horses with a noticeable and very beautiful horn. It makes them immediately easy to distinguish from ordinary horses or other cloven-hoofed animals. Why did I even bring up the question of how to tell them apart if they're fiction? How shall I put it? This video tells us otherwise. It shows people accidentally witnessing a unicorn walking. It was standing alone in a green clearing, minding its own business, unaware that anyone was filming it. It's not clear whether this video is fake or whether the person really filmed the unicorn, but many factors which cannot be ignored make you believe in a miracle. The fact is that historically the homeland of magical creatures is India, and that's where the man filmed this creature. By the way, do you even know how long ago, according to scientists, unicorns existed? It was somewhere around 400 years BC. Chinese mythology attributes only positive qualities to Qilin, as it's called locally. It symbolizes wisdom, justice, and fairness, brings good news, and is able to distinguish between good and evil. In any case, if the video is true, it bodes well. And if it's a fake, that's okay. Chupacabra. People have known about this animal for a long time, but encountering it is still a challenge. After all, this creature makes surgically precise attacks on livestock, on the most defenseless of dainty creatures, which are unable to fight back a real predator and disappears without a trace. It's virtually impossible to locate. However, eyewitnesses from Mississippi still came across something similar to the legendary and mystical creature. Of course, its silhouette and behavior immediately reminded everyone of the legendary Chupacabra. It's not hard to imagine how this creepy creature can sneak into a farm, make neat punctures with its long and razor-sharp teeth, and feed on some blood. The fact that the night hunter looks like a wolf also fits here. The monster moves on 4 paws but can stand on 2 limbs as well. Its skin is devoid of fur, and it has a crest of sharp spines on its back. Basically, everything fits except for the spines. But who knows these chupacabras? Write in the comments, what do you think about this? Did people actually film a real chupacabra? Or maybe it was someone else? Or is this video a fake? Oh wait, I almost forgot. Not so long ago, another frightening footage appeared on the internet. This time it was taken in Argentina. Something which resembles the chupacabra was shot there. By the way, this something looked almost the same as the video in the first story. As the locals say, the chupacabra attacked 2 dogs at once and dealt with them as easily as possible. Its prey was not some useless breed, but a pit bull terrier and a German shepherd dog. Again, whether this is true or not is up to you. If someone can still doubt the existence of the chupacabra because the only evidence for it is various kinds of videos, then the following story has solid evidence. I'm talking about the nearest ancestor of the dinosaurs, Teleocrator. Its appearance has been reconstructed by scientists by finding remains from around the world. The fossils suggest that this creature lived some 245 million years ago. It was the missing link in the evolution between archosaurs and dinosaurs. Ancient reptile archosaurs were the ancestors of crocodiles on one side and dinosaurs and birds on the other. But if from archosaurs to crocodiles there was a clear evolutionary line with transitional forms of creatures, then in the direction of the dinosaurs there was a gap in the evolutionary line. Dinosaurs appeared on Earth as if from nowhere. The only thing that scientists could do is to recreate the hypothetical ancestors of dinosaurs, strongly resembling a plucked chicken running quite fast on two legs. As you understand, this very Teleocrator was just that. Presumably it could be several meters tall and weighed more than 220 pounds. This creature, like a crocodile, could swim in water and swiftly capture absolutely any prey, swallowing it alive. At the same time, Teleocrator was perfectly capable of dealing with many terrestrial creatures on land. In any case, although its remains have been found by archaeologists and scientists have reconstructed a presumed skeleton, people have no accurate information and are unlikely to ever get it. No matter how you look at it, 245 million years have passed. Kappa. It's a name many of you know thanks to a popular clothing brand. But no, don't rush to skip this story. There'll be no commercials now. In fact, it's also the name of a demon that lives in Japan. Kappa is the name of a creature that lives in rivers and lakes. It's both a dangerous monster and evil joker. Locals were very afraid of him in ancient times and even invented special ways to placate him. Today, however, the picture has changed and people somehow find Kappa to be a sweet and kind creature. Let's be thankful that at least they don't have him at home. It's unclear if he was filmed in this footage or if it was someone else, but the creature definitely looks a lot like him. Well, you're still looking at this handsome fellow, I'll tell you one possible theory for the origin of the Kappa legends. It may have something to do with a sad ancient Japanese tradition. Poor families who had newborn children often threw them into rivers because they couldn't afford to take care of them. Others were told by the elders that something called Kappa lived in the water, and if they were too close to the shore, the mysterious creature could grab them and drag them down to the depths with it. As you can imagine, this was done so that children wouldn't go to the water and see other children who had been sent to Kingdom Come. Hast's eagle. Who would have thought that before, not only on land or in water, but also right in the air, there could be a threat? And sometimes this threat was much bigger than that from the known to many megalodon or some huge lizard. The fact is that the Hast's eagle, as the ancient giant eagle was called, could knock down anyone. The eagle was named after the scientist who first discovered its remains. As the man suggested, the bird had standard size, but at some point, because of its special diet, it took a different developmental path and mutated. To give you a better understanding, this raptor was vastly superior to all of its modern relatives. It could weigh up to 31 pounds and had a wingspan of almost 10 feet. Paleontologists believed that the Hast's eagle had no potential enemies at all. It was too clever, fast, agile, and cunning. And lastly, I'll give you an illustrative example. The well-known golden eagle can safely hunt a wolf. Its talon's compression force allows it to do so. In the case of Hast's eagle, its paws were stronger. They were very powerful. In girth, they were like a human leg. And the talons could clench with twice the force of a golden eagle. And that wasn't its main weapon. It turned out to be a beak. It was up to 7 inches long. Thanks to its powerful neck, the raptor could strike with it like a sledgehammer. Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf, said the protagonist of this video and leisurely left the room where Harry Potter lived. Sorry, but that's the only way to explain what was going on in this video. The Colorado resident posted this footage, and the mystical creature on it looks an awful lot like Dobby. Do you all remember this cute, kind-hearted elf from the legendary movie series? Don't you? By the way, write in the comments, which part of Harry Potter do you like the most? Megalania. Did you order the world's biggest lizard? No? Well, it doesn't really care. It feels like it's the ruler of this world and can do whatever it wants. Although it's more accurate to say that it could do whatever it wanted because, luckily for us, the giant is long thought to be extinct. Although no complete skeleton of Megalania has been found yet, scientists believe that it could reach up to 30 feet in length and weigh more than 2 tons. Of course, such a creature couldn't help but be at the top of the food chain. It hunted everyone in general. It's assumed that, like its closest monitor lizard relatives, Megalania possessed toxic saliva. Most likely, its hunting method was similar to that of Komodo dragons. It was an ambush predator that sharply knocked its prey down and bit it. Its only relative weakness was its speed of movement. Our giant lizard didn't run that fast, only 6.5 to 10 feet per second. Although I did the math and that's actually not slow at all. And if you consider that it was even several times hardier than crocodiles, then it turns out to be some kind of Usain Bolt of the reptile world. I don't think there's a single person on Earth who has never heard of the Kraken in their life. Northern sailors from ancient times described terrible monsters that resembled a cephalopod. It was from then that the legends and tales got started, and the Kraken took on a much more popular and terrifying character. According to sailors' descriptions, this creature was the size of a floating island and had such power that it could drag the most unwieldy warship to the bottom with its tentacles. Of course, we can write this off as mere fiction. And besides, if such a creature was real, wouldn't scientists have found any traces of it? But here, the story takes on a different, much more curious character. Many scientists are convinced that the Kraken still exists today. It's just that people who encounter huge squids don't attribute anything mystical to them. What do you think of this theory? I think it's very interesting. That's all, guys. Do you believe in the Kraken's existence? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.